hunter. There, come to the shrines of Anu and Ishtar. Go into the shrine and look there at the great metal box with the locks on it. Open the lid of that box and look at those tablets of lapis lazuli. On those tablets, the story is written. Gilgamesh was too much for his city. He was using up the young men as though they were just so many arrows in his quiver that he could keep shooting. He always had another building to make. He always had another project to do. He worked all of his people as fast as they could come with him, but Gilgamesh was too strong, too big, twice the size of any man. There was no man who could stand against Gilgamesh. He was alone in his power, in his aura, in his terror. Gilgamesh was the terror. And all those were underneath him saying, is this the shepherd? Is this how the shepherd behaves who works us? No woman is safe, not the warrior's wife, not the senator's wife, not the plowman's wife. No woman is safe. Who is this wild ox of heaven? Is there no way to control this Gilgamesh? He is too much for us. And so they went to the elders of the city and said, what are we to do? This Gilgamesh overwhelms us. Make an equal for us. That's what we need. And so the elders said, go out and make offerings to the gods and ask them for an equal to this one. And so they did. And Aruru heard their prayer, and she took clay and divine spittle, and Enkidu was born there on the plain, the wild and hairy man Enkidu, running with the animals raised by the wolves as fast as the gazelles, roaring over the mountains and through the valleys. Look at the wild man Enkidu, the huge power and size of him, as he lopes and runs with those animals, talking their language, always with them. A hunter comes back to his father and says, Father, I have seen something so strange. When I go down to the ponds where the wild animals drink, there is a wild man who made me shudder and move back in terror and fear. A wild man amongst the animals. He teaches them not to go into the traps so that I can no longer be a hunter, Father. What should we do? Go to the city, my son. Find Gilgamesh. Find Gilgamesh the king. He will know what to do. So the hunter made his way to the city. A long 3 days' walk it was, sleeping there on the plain and then moving through the high heat of the day until at last he saw rippling like an illusion, glittering and floating, that city of towers and turrets, the copper beaming in the sun, the gold flashing in the sun. As he approached high, seeing the city down in the plain, coming down to the city in amazement at its beauty, coming in the gates, the great gates, and making his way through the city, saying, I must find the king Gilgamesh. I need to speak to him. I have seen something he needs to know about. And he came before Gilgamesh, and terror was in his belly when he stood before the king, when he saw the might and the power and the aura that surrounds Gilgamesh. And he told Gilgamesh his story of the wild man, and Gilgamesh said, I had a dream. I had a dream that in the plain beyond here, out there in the plain, a great meteor came down out of the sky, bounded into the ground, made a great covering there. I came to that meteor and I struggled with it. I tried to pick it up. I put the leather strap on my head and tried to pick the meteor up. It was too heavy for me. I was drawn to it the way a man is drawn to a woman. I went to my mother and I said, Mother, what is this dream? A meteorite fell out of the sky. I struggled with its weight but could not lift it. I was drawn to it as a man would be drawn to a wife. And she said, this is special, Gilgamesh. This dream is good for you. This dream is to show that it is not a wife who is coming to you here. It is a friend. This is a friend. This is a companion who will be with you, Gilgamesh, who will be the axe in your belt. This is one who is coming to you, Gilgamesh. I had that dream. And he looked back at the hunter and said, do this. Go to the temple. Find one of the dancing girls there. Shamat is the one I recommend. Take her with you into the wilderness. She knows the things that women know, and she will be able to tame the wild man. Take her with you. For 3 days they walked across the plain. At night they would camp, make themselves shelter against the wind, find sweet water in the well, make offering to Shamash, and the next day walk on, once again at night, finding the well for sweet water. until at last they came to the spot where they knew the wild man was. And there, the dancing girl from the temple, she took all of her rugs and laid them out. She made a bower there. Any man walking by would say, surely some goddess lives here, looking at that bower. And she sat there and she waited for Enkidu to come down to the water and drink. And when Enkidu came down to the water to drink, as he must do, he looked up ahead of him and saw what he had never seen before, the beauty of a woman in front of him. And he came to her as though pulled and torn and brought into her, and she enveloped him and took her into his softness. And there he lay for 7 days and 7 nights. He lay there. And then at last he said, I must go back to the animals. I must go back and visit with the gazelles. I must leave you now. And he ran back up into the hills, but he was not as fast as he'd been before. And when he came close to the animals, they ran away from him. They said, you stink, you smell of soap. You've been with a woman. Who are you? Go now. And he could not run with them, could not keep up with them. And he came back and said, I could not speak with them anymore. I could not be with them. And so I come back to you. Oh, what now? And she says, Gilgamesh, he is the king in Uruk. You will go to Uruk and you will meet Gilgamesh. But before you do, I must teach you those things that will make you one of us. I must teach you how to put clothes on your body. I must teach you how to eat cooked food, not raw food. And then I teach you our language. And so she was with him, and she would walk, that dancing girl, quite small she was, and the enormous Enkidu like a child holding her hand, and she led him into a hunter's camp there where there were shepherds as well, all gathered around the fire, and they marveled when they looked up and they saw this enormous man like a meteor walking into their midst and saying, what is the power of this one? Who is this one who comes to us? And Shamat said, this is Enkidu. And she said, look, Enkidu, they have food, and they had cooked meat, and they had barrels of beer. And Enkidu ate the meat, and he drank 1 barrel, and then 2 barrels, and then 3 barrels, and then 4 barrels, and 5 barrels, and 6. He drank 7 barrels of the beer, and he said, that's good. What is it you all need? I am here for you. And they said, well, we can't sleep. The lions harass our sheep at night. We would just like a night of sleep, safe from the lions. And he said, that is what I do best, keeping lions away. I watch the lions, you sleep. And all night, Enkidu keeping the lions away. They were so grateful. And then a traveler came through the camp. He came into the camp, and he was carrying a beautifully worked and tooled and designed bowl. And they said, where are you going with that bowl? And he said, I'm going to a wedding. I'm going to a wedding in Uruk, and this bowl will be filled with beautiful food for the wedding party. But Gilgamesh will be there. And we know the danger of Gilgamesh when there is a wedding to be had. Enkidu heard these words, and anger stirred inside him. He said, this is not right. And he said, we will go to the city. We will march there together. And so Enkidu set off for the city, and he went with Shamat. And every night, it was Enkidu who found the clean water, because that was Enkidu's special ability, to just smell where the water is and dig the well and have pure, clean water. When they came into the city, the bridal party was happening, and as it happened, even as Enkidu entered into the city in amazement at the gates and amazement at the buildings, there he saw Gilgamesh coming towards him. And immediately, Stormy Heart fought with Stormy Heart. The two met together face to face and locked the way 2 great bulls would come together and locked their horns together. And they fought in that city. For 7 days and 7 nights they fought in that city. That city shook, the lentils shook, all the marble moved apart, all the fine joins were loosened as those 2 bulls fought through the streets, fought over the roofs, fought their way around the city, until at last, on the 7th day, Enkidu was able to take over and lie down as Gilgamesh rose up on him and flashed down upon him and said, at last I have you trapped under me. And Enkidu looked up and said, you are the terror, you are the aura of power, you are the perfect one, you are the bull of heaven, you are Gilgamesh. And Gilgamesh stood up and he lifted Enkidu up with his arm, and those